My name is Abby Vinoy, and I am here as the graduate assistant for the Transnational NGO initiative here at the Moynihan Institute at Syracuse University. I'm joined by Ricardo Gomez of Plan International, who will discuss his role and position in Plan International and his experience in the transnational NGO sector. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So a few questions about your leadership in Plan International and the career that you've developed over the years with Plan. So first, tell me about the focus of Plan International and your specific position within Plan.
Okay. Yes, Plan is a large NGO, probably one of the largest child-focused NGOs. And we work in 67 countries worldwide. Mm-hmm. And I have been with Plan for 18 years, and my latest post, which I just concluded last December, was being Country Director for Plan in Guatemala, Central
Mm-hmm.
America.
Okay. And what about your other positions? I know that you've worked for Plan in other capacities.
Yes, then prior to that I was Country Director in Sri Lanka,
Mm-hmm.
South Asia, for the 6 years there. And then prior to that in Colombia, my country where I was born, and then in Ecuador. So it's been a long career
Okay.
in Plan.
And what motivated you to start your career in Plan International and in the transnational NGO sector?
Probably from since I was a kid, I liked the social sector, and most because I went to a Jesuit school, and that was really embedded in the education.
Okay.
Yes. I took a master's degree. I studied business and then took an MBA. Joined the private sector with Exxon, and then worked with Exxon for 10 years in Colombia, and then moved into the NGO sector.
That's a very interesting transition. Do you find that your skills from the private sector apply to the transnational NGO sector?
A lot, and people ask me and were surprised from Exxon, my God, how come you're making such a shift? And I even wonder because people were questioning me so much. But over the years I realized that I did the right thing, and if I would have to do it again, I'll do the same process again. Working for the private sector, it's very important because you learn the best managerial skills. And the NGO sector has become a big sector. Lots of money, lots of people, lots of projects that you need to manage properly.
So that being said, you have a lot of transferable skills, but did you face any challenges in starting a career in the transnational NGO sector?
As well, because the language with the private sector and the NGO sector, when I joined 18 years ago, was very different. Yes, private sector being effective, efficient, profits, audits. Yes, and NGO sector was a bit loose those days. Yes, just do the projects, and that was about it. But every day I see the NGO sector coming closer and to the private sector.
Okay. So what kind of suggestions do you have for students who are looking to engage themselves in a job in the transnational NGO sector?
Okay. Every day the NGO, transnational NGOs are becoming more localized, more embedded in the local culture. So that's very important. You need to be as close as possible to the local culture. And the very first thing is language. Yes? So know the language of the place you want to work. Yes? And that's becoming a requisite by most NGOs. Yes? And get to know the place. The NGO sector is getting into what it's called the right-based approach, that citizens are able to exercise their rights. You need to know the international legal framework as well as local legal framework. Yes, know the history, know the customs at local level. Yes, so it's every day is more demanding for you to be able to fit into the local culture.
Okay. What about networking skills? Do you find that important in establishing a job?
Very important, and first of all, I would say it's very important to more in the NGO sector, more in the social sector than in the private sector. You really need to have a feeling, a desire, yes? Be something that it's embedded in you, what you want to do in life, yes? And have a passion for it, a real commitment for it, yes? More than in the private sector. In the private sector, you can get a job to make money and have a good living, but your private life and your business life within the transnational sector has to be very compatible, yes?
Yes. And sometimes communicating that passion to the organization that you want to work with can be challenging.
Communities, people you work with, find out very quickly if you are really committed to what you're doing.
Okay.
And that's key to your success.
So in Plan International, what would be a daily routine for you?
Wow.
From morning to evening.
Email. We are a big transnational NGO, like I told you, 67 countries, and we interact with countries everywhere. So in Guatemala, we get funding from our offices in Japan, most big part from Japan, from Germany, from England, from Spain, some from Norway. So it's a really spread out in the world. So there's interaction with those offices, yes? And we have headquarters in London. In addition, we have a regional office in Panama, yeah? So email, communication, it's very important. So I would spend, first thing I do when I get to my office is turn on the email and see what emails you have and deal with them quickly, because otherwise they start piling up, yes? So that's a big challenge. In addition, you get emails from people within your office, yes? First thing, get rid of emails. Second thing, we have in Guatemala 8 offices. Our office, which is in the country, in the capital city, and 7 other offices in the rural areas. Be in touch with them every day. Just give a quick call and say how things going, and yes, and there's always business going on. But key is to be in touch with everyone. Be aware as a manager, as the head of Plan Guatemala. I felt that it was key to be in touch with everyone and know what's going on.
So no isolation.
Oh my God. No, and that's one of the drawbacks. The only isolation to read and learn, because there's so much activity going on in the NGO sector at home, over the week, on weekends and at night. Yeah, you need to read and study. Yes. When I first came to Guatemala, and I mentioned this earlier in the interview, you need to really get acquainted with the place. Yes. So you need to read the Constitution, read public policies related to children. That takes a lot of time, a lot of energy from the very beginning. And then slowly, once you get acquainted with it, it's okay. But in addition, like in Guatemala, and that would be the case in most countries, there are a lot of agencies, international agencies, other similar NGOs in the country. You need to network and interact with them.
Okay. What's the forum for interacting with those other organizations?
UN system tends to be well organized, yeah? And that's a big important body you need to deal with, yeah? On UNICEF in our case, and World Food Program, and UNDP. You need to interact and be network with them, yes?
Okay.
And other big similar NGOs like World Vision, like Save the Children, yes, and idea is to work with them and have alliances countrywide.
So is that through conferences and meetings or
These
conferences?
things work personally. If you become friends first and then things start flowing.
Okay.
Yes? So make it as personal, as open, as easy as possible.
That's great. So for our final question, what changes do you see in the transnational NGO sector? How do you see the sector moving, and how can students anticipate those changes in applying for jobs?
Good question, and it's very important for students to be aware of the changes that are taking place. Like in any sector, in the 21st century, same is with the NGO sector. It's a lot of changes coming up. One of the biggest changes that I see is the right-based approach. Yes, NGOs moving away from providing services directly to communities. Yes, and the NGO sector advocating and making sure that communities they work with, population they work with, the aim is for those communities to be able to exercise their rights. Yes, and this is a completely new language and approach. Yes?
So more of an empowerment structure.
More empowerment, more deepening democracy, more citizenship. Yes, more participation, more government institutions getting involved, and actually NGOs moving away from the field of development and supporting entities and communities for them to interact. Yes, being a bit on the shadow, on the back. Yes, that's a big challenge. There's a lot to learn there, a lot to be discovered. Yes, a lot of research to be done. Quite an interesting time, for students coming into the sector nowadays. Very competitive sector, difficult to get in. But that's happening with almost any sector nowadays.
Yes. Thank you so much for
You're
your time
welcome.
today.
A pleasure.